Hola, hola, Artivistas. Bienvenidos de vuelta. Welcome back. This is going to be our fourth and final episode of this limited podcast series. It is a visual podcast per se, too. And today we're going to be talking about Chicana futurism. And so we ventured along this short journey where we've been talking about different forms of public art and the significance that they had, some of the groundbreaking Chicana women and Chicana organizations that went ahead and were some catalysts and some inspiration into how we define public art today, and specifically public art as a tool as a tool for critique against social marginalization and oppression. So with Chicana futurism, instead of looking retroactively, looking towards the back, we're going to go ahead and look into the future. Going to go ahead and look into the imaginaries and the possibilities for what Chicana public art can be in the future. This is something that has been evolving. It has its roots in the history, which is why it is so important to go back and listen to those other three podcasts that just give a small selection of the vast world that is Chicana art and Chicana public art. But with a little bit of this knowledge, now that we've seen some of the methodologies that have also been applied, and we see some of the themes that are coursing through, which are themes such as counter narratives. We see testimonios being used, denuncia, which is kind of going against erasure, which is also another theme that we see in history and the way the stories are told. We also see the presence of different marginalized groups within the Chicanx community, which has included women and has included also the queer people. So then with this, we see, for example, like in Teatro Lebrijes, that brought more attention to plays and artistic work that center the experience of LGBTQ Latinx communities. And so going forward with Chicana futurism, so it involves what we call an artistic nexus, kind of like this coming together of political and social problems. And it is rooted in Afrofuturism. So we do bring back through Afro-Indigenous and Black communities, African Americans. And we see with Afrofuturism that it is a fertile ground for a number of Black and feminist writers. This is something that the author Ramirez points out. And the point of this is to create new narratives and stories that are representing Black and Afro-Indigenous people. And in Chicana futurism, we're going to see how they center and amplify Chicanx communities, Chicanx people. And what they do is that we have seen in the past, specifically create a critique of the way that digital platforms, technology is being used, the way it's being created, the purposes for it, whose needs are being wanted through it, who is having access to these types of things. And we see how technology is also impacting in both positive and negative ways, both of them. The communities such as the Chicanx community, in this instance with Chicano futurism. So what it does is that it recognizes also that people of color have been erased from the future, just as many of us were excised from narratives of the past and remain hidden from view in the barrios, ghettos, reservations, and prisons of the present. So these are just some of the places in which we see erasure. We can also find this in our everyday lives through our experiences in different places, such as in academia being a large one, for example. And so what Chicana futurism does is that it takes television, it takes film, music, and stories, whether it's in books and poetry, and it goes ahead and creates this new genre that pulls in from other genres, and it creates a nexus. So one of the examples of, for example, Afrofuturism that is just simply amazing is the work of Octavia E. Butler. So Octavia E. Butler, what she did is that she had this critique of the world around her, what was at present with her, and she started to imagine and ask herself, what would a world be where this changed, where this is different, where certain systems are removed or abolished? And so when we think about this, she started thinking of sci-fi. So with sci-fi, there's a lot of creativity. With science fiction, you can play around with what could be things that don't exist yet, or things that you're starting to see evolve, but you want to take it a new direction, or you want to give it a new purpose, breathe new life into it. And specific, especially when you're considering a population that isn't highlighted in these stories. So we bring in, for example, Octavia's Brood is a collection. It's a collaborative book, and it includes one of the authors from there is Adrienne Marie Brown. She's the author of Emergent Strategy, and she also talks a lot about these topics on social justice, specifically with people of color. And we see in this collection, it's called Octavia's Brood, and it's a collection of books, of narratives in a book. And there are sci-fi stories, horror stories, fiction, magical realism. And what was asked of people is to kind of create a story that went outside of the limitations that we often kind of confine ourselves to, and to imagine these new worlds, to imagine like these new places. What is it going to be like? There's talk of the intergalactic tribe. There are horror stories that kind of examine our current living situations or our current institutions through a different lens that maybe involve magical realism or fiction. And so there is also a podcast that's created for this. If you would like to go ahead and check it out, it's going to be linked on the website here, that also provides a quick summary for those who are interested in learning more after these podcasts. And then besides that, so that's kind of just an intro on Chicana and Afrofuturism. There is also the way that this is now paving the way into what could be in the future in other ways. So if we think about technology, for example, which is one of the things that is critiqued, and then we see kind of the ways that how is community interacting with it? Are they being collaborative? Are they being involved? Are there collaborative projects with community in order to make use of this technology? One example is actually Judy Baca, which was the muralist that we went ahead and reviewed in one of the podcast episodes. And she went ahead and did a collaboration with Snapchat. So Snapchat has a lot of filters that are commonly used by their users. So what Judy Baca wanted to do is that she wanted to bring back life and breathe back life into it. And she found that one of the ways that she could do this was through augmented reality. So through augmented reality, what was done, she created a project that is called The River Once Ran. So The River Once Ran basically is a connection back to where the mural is located. There used to be a river there. There used to be all these diverse species and organisms that live there, and animals. And so what Judy Baca wants, the way that she phrases it is, the purpose to her project is, if we can disappear a river this easily, how much easier is it to erase or displace the stories of people who are there? So if we think about it, this also brings us back to just the importance of public art, taking up space physically, because then that also, the physical will transcend into kind of the community, the sense that is created, the unity and the empowerment in the people, to empower what is already within the genius that already exists within them, to bring that out and remind them of it through representations where they can see themselves reflected. And so what the augmented reality does for Judy Baca's project is that you would place the filter up, and you would put it where the mural is, and it would paint or it would go ahead and show you the river with rocks and use different sensory elements. So you're using your vision, you're going ahead and seeing the animated animals like just move around throughout the river and other like wildlife around it. And it is truly beautiful if you want to go ahead and check out the video that is linked on this website. And with it, we also see sounds to kind of go ahead. She imagines closing your eyes and hearing all these sounds and being there again. Be able to connect to your past and your history, and that encouraging you to how you want to redesign the future, where we're taking it. And if you want to take a different path, something that amplifies new voices. Another one is also the work of Adriana Arriaga. So she is someone who is using digital art in order to amplify the voices, or to amplify pride, LGBTQ communities within like the larger Chicanx Latinx community, And it's something also really inspiring if you want to check it out. We have a link on the website. And then I think something just to kind of wrap up for today and to close off this session, this limited podcast. It's been amazing to share these thoughts with you, to learn alongside the process. I'm learning, we're all learning together, and there's so much more art to discover. So something I want to kind of end off with and sign off with is this thought that I had. So art seeks to create what has not been seen yet, interpret the world around us, around an artist, or bring to light hidden subjects and figures. Chicana Futurism is a tunnel of mirrors, reflecting rich history and transcending it into the future for people to see themselves represented and reflected across time and space. So if you think about this, we have this tunnel of mirrors. You could think about it as a timeline or as a physical space, and we're walking through it. And I think it's important that we look back, and through this tunnel we see ourselves reflected in our ancestors, the people who came before us, the people who inspired us, whether it's from different ethnic groups, from Chicana women themselves, and we try and continue to transcend that work and just pass it forward and continue to reflect our stories and build off of them, so that we can amplify our voices and use public art as a tool to empower us and to celebrate our history. There's a lot of resistance in this movement, and it's also important to remember that there is a celebration going on as well. And with that, I sign off. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast, and sign off.